Engels, is social, utopian, scientific, developed themselves into sort of independent producers, eventually. Not lords, but independent producers.
But then who decides who's a lord and who's a son?
It's very simple. The lord owns the land. Very simple. And has a retinue here. It doesn't matter to decide, it is given, and the serfs are basically only able to cultivate this land because they are rendering up to the lord the rent. It's very clear who's lord and who's serf.
So that means the guys own the land and have the lord.
That is certainly, if you are a lord, you own the land. You also have other attributes. You have a sort of political status that allows you actually to organize the serfs in particular ways. But that's the essential material foundation. It is the ownership of the land. The ownership of the access to the means of subsistence, which is given up to the serfs. Part of it is given to the serfs, but in exchange for them working on your lord's land.
Then how do they get the land?
Which land?
The land that they own.
The Lord. But that's a historical issue. I mean, there have always been struggles over land, but eventually a class concentrates that owns the land, and then all the rest have to probably by force. That's what Marx and Engels say, by force. Groups emerge, struggles, and class consolidate. We do not have a good history about the origins of these modes of production. What we have is a understanding of how they are structured and how they reproduce themselves, and also how they decline. We do not have a good theory of origins, as ever. Weber is the only person who really studies origins seriously, and we'll come to that next semester. Okay, very good. Onward. We must move on. Wage labour. We've really gone through this already once, so let me move through this a little bit more quickly than I would otherwise. What's the difference between a serf and a wage labourer? The first difference is that the serf produces the means of his or her own subsistence, right? And a wage labourer, Katie? Purchases his means of subsistence. That is to say, the wage labour is estranged from, separated from, has no longer access to the land where he or she can produce the means of subsistence, is expelled from the land. There were processes of systematic expulsion of serfs from the land, and then the only way that they can survive is by selling something to somebody, and in return getting a wage, money, with which they purchase the means of their subsistence. So, let's put it like this. Subsistence. That is necessary for survival. In order for there to be subsistence, you need to have goods. Consumer goods. Food. Yep. And for you to purchase goods, you need a wage. You need money. Alright, let's call it money. How do you get the wage? Well, what do? You sell what? You were brilliant. I was just ready to crown you. Very good. Labour power. You sell labour power. Very good. You sell labour power. Very good. You sell labour power, and you sell labour power to whom? To a capitalist. Okay, a capitalist buys labour power, and labour power is exchanged for a wage, which is money, which allows you to buy goods, which allows you to consume them and provide for your existence. Now, alright, very good. That's the story. That's the big story. Now, what is labour power? What is this thing here that is sold to the capitalist? What is this labour power? We talked about it last time, but it's sold to the capitalist. Yes?
The potential to work.
The potential, or even the capacity, very good. The capacity to work. The capacity to work. Capacity to work. Notice, the serf the serf extends labour. The slave extends the labourer, whereas the proletarian under capitalism extends labour power. Labour power, the capacity to work. I come to the factory door as I say to Mr. Capitalist, here I am. Here's my labour power. I slept for 8 hours last night and I'm all renewed. I had 3 meals yesterday. I'm all renewed. Now, right. What happens next? Stands up. What happens next? What does the capitalist do? All right, he's got my labour power. What does the capitalist do? Does he just stare at me? What does the capitalist do? Yes, Felipe. He turns labour power into reality, which is labour power into production, which is Christy? Labour activity. Turns the labour power into activity. So the capitalist buys labour power for a wage, and in return, somehow, the labour power has got to be turned into labour activity. Right. Okay. That's the basic story which we talked about and read about on page 204, 205. Now, what is the value of this labour power? How much wage do you have to give to the labourer? What is the value of the labour power? What is the value of my capacity to work? You, Neil?
Yes.
Ah, you returned. Very good. Neil, yes.
Something less than the total value of the way produced.
That is absolutely correct. Something less than, but that's not very precise. That's another way. That will be another way of thinking about it. But no, I want to be. Why is it less than? Kristen?
Enough for the capitalist to make a profit.
Enough for the. You've always got a standpoint of the capitalist. Yes, but what's it from the standpoint of the worker?
Enough for them to the very minimum the capitalist can get away with giving a worker for the worker to stay in that job and survive and keep producing.
Aha! Now we're getting nearer. Yes, are you by any chance? Do I know you?
Rosa.
Rosa, you were sitting up there. That's right, Rosa.
Wage minimum?
A wage minimum. Well, what is this wage minimum? Absolutely. What is this wage minimum, Juliana?
It's the, well, going off of my answer to my previous.
That's good.
It's just enough so that the labor can serve to exist and produce.
Right.
That labor power adds more.
Yeah, hold on. Go ahead. I just want to know what the value of labor power is. The value of labor power is indeed that which it takes, that it's basically the value of the things that it takes to maintain the laborer. What does it take to maintain the laborer? To maintain the laborer so the laborer can come back the following day and work another 8 hours? Hands up, young man! Yes?
Food, water, shelter.
Food, water, shelter. Food, water, shelter. That is necessary to maintain the laborer so that the laborer then comes back and works the capital. So what the capitalist does is gives to the laborer what it takes to reproduce that capacity to work that labor power. That is the food, the water, the shelter. And if it's for a day, then it's the day wage. The day wage is what it takes. Okay, alright. So where does Marx say that? 206? Do I know you? I know you. From last time? A while back. Okay, you're not Aracelia by any chance. Now, who are you? You're Rachel. There's 2 Rachels then. Oh, that's good to know. Alright, yes, 206. Very good. Very good. 206. Who's Aracelia? Where's Aracelia? Ah, there's Aracelia. Ah, yes, I gotta keep an eye on you. Okay. 206. 206. Where on 206, Rachel?
The italics within these books.
Okay, let me do the reading. Okay, are you all on 206? Everybody's brought their book. Yes. Alright, 206, the first set of italics says, what then is the cost of the production of labour power? Because that is the value of labour power, what it costs to produce labour power. It is the cost required for maintaining the worker as a worker and developing him into a worker. Very good. Let's drop down to the next italics, which is at the end of the next paragraph. The price of his labour will therefore be determined by the price of the necessary means of subsistence. It should say, the price of his labour power. Therefore, be determined by the price of the necessary means of existence. Okay, very good. Now, is it sufficient just to maintain the single labourer? Why not? Hands up. Yes.
Because they have families.
Because they have families. But why do they have families? What's so important about families?
They need somebody else to help them work also.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point. One could argue that they need somebody to actually cook for them. But actually, the great thing about the family is that is unpaid labour. No, there's something else going on here. Yes, there's something else. It's not just they need somebody to cook for them. Yes, Lauren?
So then use someone to
That's right. It's not good enough just to maintain one labourer. We need a whole generation of labourers, followed by another generation, you need a succession. Therefore, you need to maintain a family, because that is the vehicle of reproducing the labour force. So you have to, in a sense, pay for not a single wage earner, but a family wage. And that's what Marx says here on page 206. I think he does, yes. Yes, which paragraph? How am I to describe this? So many paragraphs on this page. Well, we just read no, it's not the bottom. It's the bottom of the paragraph that follows what I just read. And it's the middle, the biggish I don't know, the third paragraph from the bottom, up from the bottom, the one that begins another consideration. Are you there, Juliana? Another consideration? Good. Well, in that paragraph, 2, 4, 6, 7 lines into that paragraph, Marx says, what, Siana?
in the same way?
Yep.
The same way, exactly the cost of production of simple labor power. There must be the cost of reproduction, whereby the race of workers is able to multiply due to worn-out workers by new ones.
Yes, worn-out workers have to be reduced by new ones. Thus,
depreciation of the workers taken into account the same way as depreciation of the
right, so workers depreciate have to be renewed, and that renewal actually takes place with the family. So basically, what Marx is saying here is that we have to pay a family wage, an upkeep of the family, so that we can be assured that there will be a continuing succession of labourers, so that capitalism will continue to survive. That's very good, very good. So, the value of labour power, ultimately this labour power, the capacity to work, well, it's what goes into it, the cost of producing that labour power, but Marx says that capitalism as a whole is interested in reproducing the labour force as a whole, and therefore we don't pay what it just takes to maintain the labourer, but to maintain the labourer and his or her family. Okay. Okay, very good. Now, that's the essence of the story here, and we'll move on to profit in a second, but that's what we've got here. Capitalists pay these laborers for their labor power, which is basically paying them for the production of labor power. Now, I just want a slight digression. Marx talks about the laborers as free laborers on page 205. If you look at 205, if you look at the last paragraph on the page, Marx writes, the serf belongs to the land and turns over to the owner of the land the fruits thereof. The free laborer, in italics, the free laborer, on the other hand, sells himself, and indeed sells himself piecemeal. What does he mean by the free laborer? What does he mean by the free laborer? Jessica.
The worker belongs neither to an owner nor the land, but 8, 10, 15 hours of his daily life belong to him who buys them. So he's not a slave who belongs to the slave owner. He's like held by, he's owned by those hours that he has to work for someone to buy them.
Yes, but why free? Why free? Why free? Very good, but why free? Anders. But why free? A commodity? I mean, the slave is a commodity. Why free? Why free? Why free? Yes.
That's because they don't have to stay there. As if they were slaves, they will have to stay with that landlord.
And if they're a serf?
Serfs, they can leave and go to another landlord. So they're only selling their labor for a few hours.
So why is the wage laborer free and the serf perhaps less so? That's the question. Yes. Do you have the by any chance? No, you're not. I am. You are.
Wait, no, I'm Lauren.
You're Lauren. Where's Heather? Before I get confused here. See, if everybody you're moving around on me. Okay, Lauren.
Well, the wage labor, so the serf, which is the free laborer, pretty much is owned by the labor. He can't leave because he won't make any money. Whereas the wage laborer has the right or has the ability to quit and find another job, or he has more freedom in what he's doing.
Right. You see, what is interesting in Marx's vision, that's very good, Lauren. Marx's vision, slave is the least free, then the serf is more free, and then the wage laborer is the most free. But free in what sense? Free in what sense? Free in the sense, Hannah?
That one's voluntary?
Yeah, free in what sense? Voluntary, but free in what sense? Neil?
The ability to negotiate a better price for their labor.
Maybe. Yes, interesting, Sonny.
Could you think of a free labor as a freelancer?
A freelancer. And it's very simple. We've already had it. You've already been saying this. What does it mean to say free? Rosie, have your hand up.
Is it because they have the opportunity to jump from one job to another?
That's right. They are free to what? To choose whom?
To the employer.
They are free to choose, Matthew, what? Who they work for. They can work for Matthew, or they can work for Jason. Or they can work for Greg. Now, tell me, Jane, does it make any difference? That's interesting, Matthew, yeah?
Well, aren't they free in two ways? They're also free from the means of their subsistence.
All right, they're liberated from their means of subsistence. You might say that is freedom. But actually, if we read the text, I think Marx is saying basically they are free to move, free to choose. That's your choose, Sonny. Free to choose which employer will employ them, which capitalist will exploit them. They are free to choose who will exploit them. That is the great freedom that the wage laborer has. Isn't that what Marx says on 205E? 205? If you look at the bottom of 205, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 lines from the bottom. One word in from the right. Conrad, are you there?
The worker belongs...
All right, speak up so that everybody can hear you.
The worker belongs neither to an owner nor to the land, but 8, 10, 12, 15 hours of his daily life belong to him who buys them. The worker leaves the capitalist to whom he hires himself whenever he likes, and the capitalist discharges him whenever he thinks fit, as soon as he no longer gets any profit out of him, or not the anticipated profit. But the worker, whose sole source of livelihood is the sale of his labor power, cannot leave the whole class of purchasers, that is, the capitalist class, without renouncing his existence. He belongs not to this or that capitalist, but to the capitalist class, and moreover, it is his business to dispose of himself, that is, to find a purchaser within his capitalist class.
So, that is the freedom of the wage earner. Basically, it is to choose the capitalist who will exploit him or her. But the wage earner must sell his or her labor power to some capitalist. So, the worker is chained to the worker is chained to the capitalist class. Yes, is chained to the capitalist class. Yes. Which would you rather be? A slave, a serf, or a wage laborer? Sienna.